My name is Alison Harris, and this is my KW story.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us today for our My KW story. We are going to talk to Alison Harris out of Savannah, Georgia, mega agent, and our honor to have her as a KW Talent certified instructor as well, about her story of how she got into real estate, what it looked like joining Keller Williams, and how she's gotten to the point where she is today, and the key takeaways that you need to know for that. So, Alison, thank you so much for your time today. We appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Oh, thank you. So let's just start off at the beginning. What did you do before real estate, and how did you end up at Keller Williams, and what landed you in this career and in this brokerage? Let's just get right into it.
So, my degree is in theater from UCLA, and grew up as a stage manager, which is basically the person in charge of everything, including like back channel communication. It's a lot of high level communication scheduling. It's very real estate-ish. And that was when we lived in Los Angeles. And then we moved to Savannah, Georgia. And as you can imagine, the theater opportunities here were much smaller. So I actually accepted a position teaching technical theater at our local arts high school in 2003. And I taught there for 3 years. And then we had our daughter, Lily, who is now 18 years old. And on her first birthday, I got my real estate license. I really struggled with teaching, not because of the teaching. The teaching was easy. That wasn't the problem. The problem was the $26,000 a year that I was being paid. And, there was really nothing ever left at the end of the month. I could barely afford to have our daughter in daycare. And really what it kind of came down to is that I realized at that point that I really like merit-based pay. I like to be paid based on the amount of effort I put into something, because I'm going to put a tremendous amount of effort into whatever it is I do. So, I didn't really realize at that point that meant I need, an entrepreneur was probably the place I needed to be, but real estate sure seemed great. But then in addition to that, I did the math, and to replace a $26,000 a year salary and not have to put my daughter in daycare at that point, I only had to sell 5 or 6 houses. So that also felt very doable. So I kind of stumbled into it sort of accidentally, just as something to do while I stayed home with my daughter. But then I kind of realized I loved it. And, I was at a small brokerage in Savannah at that stage. And, I was doing maybe 20 units a year. It was a fantastic job for a stay-at-home mom. She was in a preschool program a couple mornings a week, and other than that, I was with her, and it was great.
So I think there's an important thing to highlight there, because this is something I've heard in multiple stories that we've done. And that is the pay that you were making, albeit a salary, right? You were on a steady, consistent income. It was low. And so it wasn't meeting what you needed. And one of the things we hear a lot of folks joining real estate is, while there's a lot of income earning opportunity in real estate, there's also a lot of fear from leaving the consistent paycheck. Yet you looked at it and you said, I enjoy being rewarded for the work that I put in. And I know if that's the case, I'm going to put in the work. And I think that's an important self-awareness from that point, and to understand how much work did you actually need to do, and what did that look like in order to make up the amount of money that you were making, which was $26,000 a year, as you said. So that's 5 to 6 houses. So now you said that you were selling 20 houses a year and still staying home with your daughter at the time for a significant portion of time, not 100% of the time, but you were spending a lot of time at home taking care of her and raising her. How was selling 20 houses and doing that?
It didn't seem very difficult. I put her in a program 3 mornings a week, and then a couple of years later, we had our son. So then I was juggling 2 kids, and they were both in morning programs. And, I basically worked 3 mornings a week in the office. Took them to school, went into the office, did the work. And then I was very fortunate to have a supportive husband who would come home. I would just schedule my appointments in the evenings. Sometimes my kids went with me. In fact, Ethan went with me on a showing when he was 3 days old. And that's actually nothing to brag about, but I think it's a little humorous. Like, I just
Do not recommend.
yeah, there was a
Do
great
not
foreclosure. I
recommend.
wanted to go see it, so we went. So those kind of, I just sort of, I guess I really didn't realize I was doing it, but I time blocked my schedule based on when I did not have my kids with me. And it worked somehow.
Well, I think it's important, right? You didn't even realize you were time blocking, but time blocking is what allowed you to do that.
Absolutely.
So, what brought you to Keller Williams?
So in, let's see, 2011, there was a key person at my original brokerage who I absolutely loved. I still call her my real estate fairy godmother. She was absolutely wonderful and was my mentor. She left the office, and it left the office just feeling like not the same place. She was a wonderful beacon for all of my questions, and she just was absolutely wonderful. So when she left, I really just we needed to make a decision, and we knew it wasn't there, that we had a distaste in our mouth because she wasn't there anymore. It just, we knew that we needed a change. At that point, I was in a business relationship. And so she and I moved together, and we were actually going to go to another small brokerage. And then I remembered that my friend Don Callahan had given me this book called the MREA. I'm not sure if you've heard of it. He brought it to an open house that I had done, and he just simply said to me, if you ever consider making a move, do me a favor and give me a call first. And I was like, wait, I need to call Don. I forgot. So I asked, and we were like literally about to move our license to a very lateral move, that day. And I called Donnie, and I was like, hey, do you have a second to kind of talk to me about Keller Williams? I just want to learn a little bit about it. And we sat there in a coffee shop, and he told me all about Keller Williams. And I called my business partner at the time, and I said, do not transfer your license. Go directly to Keller Williams and tell them you're signing up. And she's like, wait, what? And I was like, just do it. You trust me? Just do it. And so she did, and I followed right behind her. And it's interesting. Like, that was in 2011, and I was really struggling to make ends meet at that point. The market was still pretty rough. I was doing
Great
some.
Recession. Yeah, the Great Recession was in full effect between 2008, the end of 2008, and 2012, really.
So, 2011 was a rough year for me. And we came to Keller Williams in February of 2011. And that is the very last time that I ever had a late payment on any thing ever. Like, I have not, and it had to do with the commission structure being different, but also I remember walking into my first team meeting, and it was the team meeting after family reunion. As I said, we joined in February, and I had never been in a place before where people were just pouring out their secrets and their information and what they learned at family reunion. And I remember sitting there in a team meeting, just writing as fast as I possibly could. And it was like this moment in time where my world grew 3 sizes. It was unbelievable to me that people were telling one another and helping one another and showing how to do this business. And it blew my mind. Absolutely.
Talk about a great time to join, right? Could you
Yes.
imagine a better time to be more
No.
impactful or to join? And you mentioned something that Don Callahan, still one of our great mega agents that we have here at Keller Williams, but Don had given you the MREA. And I know from our conversations and our pre-interviews, you didn't really buy into the MREA. So it's funny that the MREA was the thing that sparked you to call Don because it was a gift from him and to ultimately join Keller Williams. And yet you fought the models of the MREA. Can you just tell everyone a little bit about that? Because I think that's an important part of your story
It
where we
is.
look at the book that actually brought you here
Mhm.
that you didn't buy into it.
So what I immediately did was buy into Shift. I will tell you that much. So I took that hook, line, and sinker, and I operated under those principles. And that is why I am who I am right now. And so I operated under those sort of, techniques, if you will, of that book. And I did not embrace the MREA. And I'm telling you, if you just operate under Shift, it's a very entrepreneurial kind of way to you're looking for the motivated, you're doing these things, but they're not really replicatable. The difference with the MREA is that, that's the framework for building the business. And I skipped that part, and I went right into like the band-aids sort of, no production. So I was really resistant because I had a business partner, and it felt like, with a single rainmaker, and like the team structure, I never got past that part. I didn't understand, really, and I didn't lean into it in the way I needed to, and I did not read it enough times because I feel like every time you read the MREA, a new page is going to jump out at you that you've never seen before, even though the book has not changed. It just happens. And I did not lean far enough into it. I leaned all the way into Shift, but not all the way into the MREA. I mean, I even had embarrassing conversations with people very high up at Keller Williams that I did not really understand who they were about how much I didn't think the MREA applied to me. So I am a poster child for, you know, don't do what I did. There are so many wonderful things in that book. And I'll tell you that in middle of 2021, I decided to get really, really serious about the MREA. I rolled up my sleeves. I read it. It was probably the fifth time now, and I've read it probably 3 times since then, and I carry it with me like everywhere I go. And I decided to implement all of those things. And I'd implemented little pieces, but I mean, I went all in, running the 36 touch, learning the 12 direct, hiring more admin staff. If it's in there, I've done it. I'm using all of the models, and the seismic shift in my business and, time on task over time, it takes a while. But what I'm seeing in terms of the repeat and referral business from my sphere is unbelievable.
I think there's a couple of key things to look at there, right? So you joined Keller Williams in 2006. I'm sorry, you got into real estate in 2006.
Mhm.
You joined Keller Williams in 2011 in arguably the hardest real estate market that 99.9% of people licensed today have seen. Those of you that were licensed in the 80s, yes, you probably had a little bit of a harder market and some tougher times. And 2011 was no light lift for those of us that were around at that time. But you didn't buy into the models really. And then over the next decade, you slowly began shifting into those models and getting more engaged with what a structured, less entrepreneurial business looks like, right? Moving that from E to P, right? Becoming purposeful. But it really wasn't even until the next big jolt to the real estate industry that you really leaned into them. And that big jolt, for those of you that aren't putting timelines together here, was uh, COVID hit in 2020 and the pandemic, and business fundamentally changed. What happened as well was that the real estate market caught on fire at the end of 2020. And if you didn't have what some people call the basics, I'll call the foundational models. If you didn't have those foundational models and those things there, it was hard to keep your head above water, right?
Mhm.
So keeping your head above water at the same time of implementing those models so that you could stand on top of them and build on top of them is huge. So tell us, once you instituted these things, right? What's your business look like now, and what have you been able to achieve with that?
So basically, and I was able to implement those things because of the right hires. I also feel like that's an important thing to say. Without having the right key people in place, I don't think I could have made the decision that I made. So, the path is in the people and in the math, right? Like you've got to have both of those things there. So my business today, now I have new leaders in my organization that I didn't have before. So on the admin side, I have a director of operations, I have a listing coordinator, and then we have a transaction coordinator. And then on the sales side, I have a lead buyer agent. And under my lead buyer agent, I have 4 more buyer's agents. Well, really 3, and then she has a showing partner. So there's 5 on the buyer side. We have had 20% growth year over year since my big change. And I anticipate that we're going to have a pretty big jump this year if everything stays on track. We're already ahead of goal for the year. And the number of people from my past that are reaching out to me, simply because we are, sending our 4 items of value, and we have our client events, and, we're doing our newsletter and all of the things that you do on a well-run 36 touch. All of those things are coming back in spades. The other thing that I'm doing that has made a huge difference is I have been geographically farming consistently since August of 2021, and it now accounts for almost 10% of my closed units. I have 2 properties right now under contract in the farm. I have 2 upcoming listings. Actually, I think it's probably 3. We do our neighborhood yard sale and all of those types of things. So having these reoccurring events, socializing within the farm. I actually live in the farm. has made all of the difference. And now also tracking all of the things and realizing what's working, I'm able to double down on those things. So just, tracking your ROI and really understanding what money and time spend. Time is also important, right, Liz? So,
Time is very important.
yeah, absolutely. So really understanding what those things are and then realizing where you have new opportunity, right? So, if we've got these things operating at a very high level, it's a well-oiled machine. Now, what else can we add because we have these things working so well?
There's a few things that I want to look at there, right? Like if you look above Allison's right shoulder, you're going to see a series of awards there, a series of bold trophies I know that are there as well. And she went from fighting the models and probably making a pretty decent living at doing it too, right?
Yeah,
But working hard, right? And but not really having a business, to getting very purposeful, following the models, leaning into bold, leaning into the Keller Williams University trainings, using career visioning process to hire and to build that model the way that it's supposed to. It's not just afforded you making more than $26,000 a year, right? Like you said, your daughter, who was 1 when you got into real estate, is now in college.
mhm,
Your son in high school and going to graduate. In those last few years, you've been able to curate a life by design with your family, to send your kids to college, to private school. You've bought multiple investment properties.
all true.
You've gotten engaged with the KW talent community and become a certified trainer, right? We look at these things and it starts with a pivotal moment in Allison's story. And the pivotal moment was when she really leaned into and said, I can't do these things so entrepreneurial anymore. I've got to get purposeful.
Absolutely. That's absolutely
So
true.
looking at your story, and for anybody that's watching this video today and looking at it and going, I feel that. Like, I understand where she's coming from. I have these same woes, or I came from the same place, or I've been running my business the last 10 years, not on a model too. And I think it's time to do that. What's the words of wisdom or the biggest takeaway you want somebody to take from this video that made their time watching it worth it?
My biggest takeaway that I would want someone to leave with is that you don't have to do it all at once. All at once feels very much like a fire hose. So read the MREA and figure out what you're going to implement first. Also, implementing can be really difficult. And, if you are not, so I am an establisher and I love to make systems. And I know that that's kind of rare for a rainmaker. So if you don't have those skills, you need to find the key person who does. You need to find the person, if you've read Rocket Fuel, you maybe you're the idea person and you need the implementer, whatever it may be. You need to find the person who can take you to the next level because we can't do this alone. And finding those key people and training them and giving them opportunities and then giving them opportunities within your business to continue to grow is the secret to success.
I love that you said that I do this and I like these things and I'm a creator, but that's not your typical
Mhm.
rainmaker. And that's very accurate. There's a small series when we look at our successful rainmakers who actually enjoy creating those systems, who, like Allison, love to live in a spreadsheet and a
My favorite.
process and a plan.
Yeah.
It's her favorite thing ever is a spreadsheet. I think one of the important things to look at there as well is where she said, it's just starting a little bit. You don't have to do it all at once, right? She's gotten to the point now where she's got a farm that's worked systematically, the events are worked systematically, the 36 touches work systematically. If we can just get out one newsletter a month to most of our sphere of influence and just master that first,
Mhm.
then you can
Absolutely.
add your second touches, right? Maybe it's just start with 4 phone calls a year. It's starting with those foundational things and then we build on it. Don't get lost in the overwhelm of having to do it all at once. Well, Allison, thank you for your time today. I
You're welcome.
appreciate it. And I think your story is so crucial because there's so many people out there that I hear the same thing. I was in this job. I wasn't making enough money to do what I wanted to do. And now we look at it and we look at their story and what they've been able to accomplish. And it's tremendous, right? A life by design truly has been created. And
Absolutely.
so I appreciate you sharing with everybody. For the rest of you, we will see you on our next My KW story. Have a great day.